Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Authentic Info Podcast. I'm your host, Admas Andrejo. In this episode, we're looking at an opportunity that is afforded to Zimbabweans, by virtue of political right to go and put to power a leader of their choice. There are many Zimbabweans in South Africa and other foreign countries, but in South Africa, there are a lot. And we cannot shy away from the fact that in South Africa, they are straining the health system, number one. Number two, they are costing the Department of Correctional Services because most of them are in prison. Number three, when it comes to the problems of cable theft and ESCOM, they form part of that because most of them are arrested on the scene or after. They take part in destroying the infrastructure of the state, especially ESCOM. Another thing is that they go around stealing, and they are found in position of batteries. Whenever there is a load shedding, they go to the towers that provide mobile network, and they steal. So most of them are not associated with good behavior. And when you check most of the crimes, the brutal ones, you find that a Zimbabwean is involved. So I don't hate Zimbabweans. I am African, I'm black. I love them. But the undocumented Zimbabweans, even those who are documented, by the way, most of them are found to be on the wrong side of the law. And now the EFF has said in a speech by the CCC at Uncle Tom's Hall that it's high time that Zimbabweans must leave South Africa. They must go home. They can come back if they want to, but they must go home and put to power the leadership of their choice. And we see people like Rutendo Matinyarare who advocates for the removal of sanctions against Zimbabwe. We see him saying that the CIC, Julius Malema, is wrong when he says that Zimbabweans must go back home and vote. He says the problem of Zimbabwe is not that of political leadership, but of sanctions. But we've seen a person like Ike Kumalo trying to engage and educate Rutendo Matinyarare that Zimbabwe, there's a lot that it can do for itself instead of running away from their problem and try to have permanent stay in South Africa. They are straining the country's economy because, number one, they are unaccounted for. No one can confirm how many they are because as we speak, they are still flocking into South Africa. But South Africa must now cater for their health, their food, and things like that. He indicates that it's a problem for South Africa and Zimbabweans must go back home. A person like Ike Kumalo, Advocate Ike Kumalo, he doesn't say that they must go back home and vote. He says they must, all of them must go back. So we see some of these Zimbabwean nationals trying to defend themselves or defend their permanent stay in South Africa by saying that Zimbabwe was there for South Africa. But the question is, what happened when South Africa got its liberation or got an opportunity to put to power a political party of their own? They all came back to South Africa to vote for the ANC and put it to power. And they never went out as in numbers to other countries. They kept coming back from exile. And the people who were in these foreign countries seeking assistance, trying to fight the regime from outside, they were not in their millions. These were freedom fighters, people who chose to go and battle and leave their families behind. And as soon as there was a solution, as soon as there was this political freedom, they came back to South Africa to negotiate. They came back to South Africa to vote and put to power a political party of their choice. So afforded such an opportunity, most Zimbabweans are saying no. Zimbabweans in South Africa are saying that for as long as there are still sanctions, there is no way that there can be fair elections. They have their own explanation. But I am also of the view that if you have a problem at home and you are aware of the problem, the best thing you can do is to go home and fix such a problem. We have a lot of lecturers, we have a lot of students, we have a lot of employees, professionals who are Zimbabweans. Those others we even see them on TV, which means they have competed or they are competing with South Africans and they are taking their jobs because there are presenters who are sitting at home. There are people who have master's degrees, but that they are not lecturers. They are sitting at home. But we have people from Zimbabwe who are in these universities studying, who are in these universities lecturing. These are jobs. These are opportunities. So someone doesn't have a space in university because there is a Zimbabwean who is studying. Someone doesn't have a space, doesn't have a job, but they have all the qualifications because there is this foreign national who is employed. Even the SABC presenters, television, Ndoro is Zimbabwean. So I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm saying that we can see the competition now that they are not here in the form of exile. They are here to take what belongs to South Africa. And I think it's high time that South Africa takes a position to encourage Zimbabweans to go back home and solve their problems. That is what most South Africans are saying. And Zimbabweans are saying that South Africa is not fair. They're saying that South Africa is not fair because by the time they had the same problem, they were abroad seeking help. But we also know our history. We know that by the time South Africa was sanctioned, although it was the apartheid government that was sanctioned, they started companies and trade within and made solutions for South Africa. It was still South Africa, even though it was in the hands of white people. But by the time it was sanctioned, it made sure that there is still life and activities and trade from within South Africa. Why don't Zimbabwe take the same direction? To say, because they are the ones who chased away farmers. They took farms from white people. They took industries from white people. They took mines from white people. And they failed to use those mines and to use those farms. They have gold. I think they are the only country in Africa that have gold currency. But they are failing to make it work because they expect to trade international. I mean, when you study the history of Burkina Faso, you learn that under the leadership of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso was trading amongst itself. This tribe will do rice, those ones will do textile, things like that, and then the other will sell for the other will sell for the other. Railway lines were working, and it was functional until it was sabotaged and killed. So Zimbabweans must not lie and try and defend their permanent stay in South Africa. They must go home and fix Zimbabwe. They're very smart. A lot of them are professors. They have PhDs. They are doctors. They have master's degrees. They are professionals. But they don't want to hear anything about Zimbabwe. And they always try to defend their stay in South Africa. Because those who are smart must carry along those who are not and go back. And when they want to come and visit South Africa, they must do so legally. Because whatever status that they are seeking in South Africa in terms of protections and things like that, there is no war in Zimbabwe, to speak the truth. There is no war in Zimbabwe. There was apartheid in South Africa when our people went to exile in Tanzania and all other parts of Africa. There was apartheid, and they were fighting to get rid of the apartheid as a regime. There was also, which means there was war between blacks and white. But currently, there's no war amongst Zimbabweans. And they say because there are sanctions, they don't want to go home. Practical example. In the rural villages, someone's mother is selling sweets, for example. And then the woman is not allowed to go and sell in a preschool, in a high school. The very same person can sell on the street that leads to high school. They're going to make probably the very same money. So there's no need to be inside the school if you want to sell. The very same thing that Zimbabweans are fighting for, to trade international. Why don't they trade amongst themselves? Why don't they divide Zimbabwe in terms of industries to say, here we deal with the mines, here we deal with design clothes, here we build cars, here we do this. These guys will supply these ones will supply. Then they create jobs and things like that. But they don't want that. They want to permanently stay in South Africa, while others are stealing, while majority of them are not documented. When they commit crime, they can't be traced. South Africa doesn't say they don't want Zimbabweans. No one is saying that they don't want Zimbabweans. All we are saying is that they must use the proper channels to come to South Africa. They must be known, they must be registered. It must be known how many Zimbabweans we have. So they think that they are very smart, they've read a lot of history, we don't read, we are not smart, and they want to tell us about their role in helping us fight for liberation. And it's our time to pay back. But when it was time, when South Africa was faced with a problem of apartheid, we did not move to stay in Zimbabwe, all of us, in our millions in numbers. Only those who were part of, for example, MK, were the ones who left to be organized and trained in military camps. And they only passed by Rhodesia and only asked for assistance to pass military equipment and things like that. So actively, Zimbabwe has never been part of assisting South Africa to win the armed struggle. There are videos, by the way, of former president, the late Mugabe, saying that they won't assist South Africa. Even after Mandela was released, there were many instances where Mugabe said Mandela is very soft. It's weak. Because Mandela negotiated for freedom. Mandela did not agree that white people must leave South Africa. He didn't chase white people. And he had all the powers. He had all the numbers on his side. But he foresaw that if they can take the direction or position of Zimbabwe and chase white people, it means that we do not have the skills to run those industries. No one is going to teach us. Because till today, black people don't know how to process gold. We don't know how to process diamonds, to design these watches. We can only get underground, come out with raw products, and they have to be sent abroad. Imagine going underground, you come out with a raw product, you don't know where to send it because you have chased the white person. Those are the things that Mandela avoided. Although you can say that they have compromised. They've compromised us. But had we fired them, I am of the view that we would still be in war or poor. One of the two. In war or poor. Because Mugabe did that. He took industries, he took mines and farms. But these people were not trained. They were illiterate. They only knew war. And what happened? They lost everything. The land is still there in Zimbabwe. The mines are still there in Zimbabwe. By the way, everything is still there. By the way, they are mining. We've seen the gold mafia by Al Jazeera, that episode, a 4-episode documentary. We know what these guys are doing in Zimbabwe. It's only few people who are benefiting in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe still have its own resources intact. But they don't want to do that. They want to come to South Africa, infiltrate South Africa in our spaces, in our health system, strain everything. Go to universities, it's them. You go to health facilities, it's them. You go to companies, it's them. You go to restaurants, it's them. Small businesses outside the city, it's them. Within the city, it's them. So they are not here like we did back then. We went outside to organize ourselves so that we can come back and fight, come back strong to fight. And we did just that. They come to South Africa to take from South Africans. And very few people are ready to speak about that. And people like Rutendo, they don't want South Africans to speak about that. But I think it's high time that we also take a position so that they can know that we know that they are in South Africa to take. This is Authentic Info Podcast. I'm your host, Admire Sandile. Thanks for watching. Please comment. I have seen comments from the previous episode which I did after hearing what Rutendo was proposing. And it was quite insightful, but still it was still people who don't want to go back home. So what type of a person doesn't want to go home?